Right now, you live. You can see your shoes on. I said that for her. We live. Alright. You good, Cece? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna hold my Facebook Live up right here. Okay. Okay, this is what she look like. You sitting good. That's funny. Okay, we about to go on. You ready? Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for Let's Talk with Ro, Season 2, Episode 1. I had to change my mind to survive. Tonight we have Cecilia Fraser, aka Cece, and if anybody knows me, you know I have a heart for people and their well-being. And Cece experienced a really thick storm, and she's gonna share her story tonight about the issues she had with her health and the loss of control and some revelations that she caught during her storm that changed her life. So hopefully it'll help somebody tonight. So Cece, first of all, thank you for coming on tonight, sis.
Thank you for having me, sis.
Yes, so
I am honored.
yes, so you went through a very hectic time, and you know when I heard your story, it broke my heart. But the good thing about that is you're on the other side of that now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna hop right into it.
Okay.
Now you know when people see the topic for the show, I had to change my mind to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they like, what exactly are they talking about?
Right.
You know, a lot of people don't understand that. So first of all, I just want to get some backdrop on the story before we get to that end of the spectrum.
Okay.
So I know that initially you were supposed to have a surgery done.
Mm-hmm.
You were scheduled to go in on September the 17th.
Right. Of last year.
Of last year for
Mhm.
a surgery that will only require 4 weeks of healing.
Correct.
Now, how did all of that go? Tell me about that.
So, I had a bulging disc in my back, and it was just supposed to be a quick corrective surgery on the 17th. I did a one-night stay at the hospital on the 17th, and Kate went home the next day. But after being home for a while, well, for a few days, I started to realize quickly that something was not right.
Okay, so when you realized something wasn't right, what was actually happening?
I was in excruciating pain. I had one of the worst headaches. And my body were doing things that I didn't recognize. Cold sweats, but so I was sweating, but to the touch, I was very cold. And I had these headaches that would literally knock me back in. If I tried to sit up to like go to the restroom, just sit up on the side of the bed. It literally knocked me back down to lie down.
Oh no. And do you normally experience headaches like that, or these headaches were just something that were like record breaking?
That was record breaking. Never experienced a headache to that magnitude.
Had the doctors given you any kind of side effects to expect or anything like that?
They did, and that was not a part of what to expect. Was another reason why I knew something wasn't right.
Okay. I know a lot of times when I talk to people who have surgeries or I go visit them, they may say things like they normally so happy just to get out of the hospital and go home.
Right.
I noticed that a lot of people will overlook certain things because they kind of fear calling the doctor or going back to the doctor. So did you like experience that, or did you respond differently to these symptoms?
I responded differently. I was like, somebody got to do something because this is not right. There's no way I'm going to be able to function like this.
Okay.
Like I literally couldn't function.
Okay, so what did that process look like?
So it took a while for someone to get somebody to like listen to me, because I do suffer from migraines, so they kept trying to pass it off as a migraine, but I kept saying no, because I suffer from migraines. I know what they feel like, and this isn't it.
Okay.
This is not it, right?
Okay.
So I lied there for a couple of days while I waited for the doctor to call back and forth and keep saying, well, maybe it's a migraine, well, maybe it's your sinuses, well, maybe it's this. I kept saying, no, that's not it, that's not it. I know my body, listen to what I'm saying. That's another challenge, is to get someone to listen. They think, oh, she just had surgery, it has to have something to do with that. And I'm going, no, this is different, something's not right.
Okay, and were you on the phone with them at this point? Okay, so what was the results of you communicating to them and them trying to pass you off? Were you ever able to get in there? Like, what happened after that?
Not immediately, no, because they kept passing it off. So that went on for about a day and a half. And then my daughter called the ambulance because I just I couldn't do it.
Oh,
And that took me to a local hospital where, in the city where I lived. I was actually in a hospital in Baltimore is where I had the surgeries, where the doctors were. So I went to another hospital with another set of doctors because that was where the ambulance took you.
Okay, now question. I know I always look at people riding ambulances like on the movies, and I hear people, say the ambulance took me. But what was it like? Like, was it a team of people around you in the ambulance? Did they have to carry you out? Like, what was going through your mind when the ambulance came?
So when the ambulance showed up, I was still, in my bed, in the dark. My daughter, walked them through to where I was. When I was able to kind of open my eye, because they need you to respond. While she was able to answer whatever questions they had, they were looking for me to at least respond to them. And so, I would kind of shake my head or and so I opened my eyes and focused, and my room was filled with strangers. All men. They were EMS personnel, and I think even the fire person people were there as well. But my room was full of these strangers, and they could see the pain that I was in. So they put me up on this, they didn't bring a stretcher in. It was this chair thing. And they strapped me down to this chair. So here I am strapped to this chair, head hurting. So it was kind of bumpy. That wasn't a nice experience.
Like, did they strap you down, like, with your hands?
Yeah, everything was kind of strapped, right?
I wonder why they did that. Do you think they thought you was going to windmill
fall off? Because it was this chair thing, right? So they had to get me out of my house, down the stairs, and up into the ambulance.
Okay.
And then once I got up into the ambulance, I think I stayed in that chair, and then folks kind of went to work with me in the ambulance until I got to the hospital, which was only about maybe a 10-minute ride.
Okay. Yeah. So was it scary when you were inside the ambulance? Like, were they like saying codes and stuff like that? Okay, so you in the ambulance, y'all make it to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
You already tripping because you like, I just had surgery and came home. So
Right.
why am I on my way back to the hospital?
Right.
So when you did get to the hospital and the doctor did finally come to see you, what did he say, or what did the doctor say?
Well, because I had just had surgery by another doctor, they weren't really trying to touch me. So I think their main concern was not to diagnose, but just kind of get her out of pain and get her out of here.
Okay.
So let's just kind of put a Band-Aid on it, or at least get her comfortable enough where we can, send her home.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what the focus was.
Okay.
Because they, too, try to pass it off. Well, we think maybe it's a migraine, but after they pumped me with all the migraine medication that they had, even comboing, making cocktails, so to speak, nothing worked. And I kept saying, I told you it wasn't a migraine. I told you that.
Oh.
So at that point, because they didn't want to go behind another doctor's work or tamper with that at all, they sort of just sent me out.
So basically, that ER visit, they really didn't give you their best. They basically had it in minds to get you out of there so that they could get you to your primary doctor.
Correct.
And I noticed, you know what, Cece? I see that happening a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like it. A lot of people go to the ER, and I mean, I get it. Maybe they are overwhelmed sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe it's but so much they can do.
Right.
But what if they had sent you home and something went completely to the left, you know?
Yeah.
That's these ERs, and I think it's good, and it's a good point for people to hear you say that.
Mm-hmm.
You knew your body.
Yes.
And you did not let them, because a lot of people, they will listen to what those doctors say. And they'll, because they want to go home. And believe it or not, people want to go home.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I have a lot of family in the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just fighting for that and saying, no, something is wrong,
They just go home.
they just go home. And then it's some crazy results from the experience.
Yeah.
So when you did get sent home by the ER,
Mm-hmm.
what happened with that?
Well, they sent me home and said, follow up with the doctor that did the surgery.
Okay.
And I had an appointment coming up. So that was a Friday. I was in the ER. I actually had an appointment that Monday.
Okay.
With that said doctor. So I just kind of went home and suffered over the weekend because the headache never went away. So I just went back to my dark room and they gave me, pain medicine from the surgery. I took that, that's all I had. And I pretty much suffered until that Monday, until my appointment.
That's horrible.
It was horrible.
So you suffered, you kind of did all the lights off and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you did go to your appointment on Monday, what did your primary say?
So when I went to, it was the orthopedic surgeon.
Uh-huh.
And when I went to that doctor and he actually laid eyes on me, it was like, okay, there's something else to what she's saying. So then I started explaining, what was happening, how badly my head was hurting, how I was having the cold sweats, how I couldn't function. Because I did all but crawl in there. My daughter drove me. I couldn't drive anything. She helped me get dressed, and she put me in the car, and I did all but crawl into that doctor's office, which was located in Columbia.
Okay.
And then once I got in there, the look on my face, the nurses and such was like, oh my gosh, someone is in pain. So they literally, made an area for me to lay down in the lobby until they could get a room. So they did lay down right here. This, Ms. Fraser, while we go in here and clean up the room for you to come in here until the doctor can see you. So they did that, and I got in there to see the doctor. Again, my daughter doing most of the talking because I'm in so much pain. He checks the incision area, he listens to what I'm saying, and then it was, okay, I suspect this is a CSF leak, cerebral spinal fluid leak, based on the symptoms that you were having and what I see.
Okay, now, give me some information on that. What is it?
Cerebral spinal fluid leak.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
So what is that?
So so the back surgery that I had was surgery on my spine. So you have fluid that runs up and down your spine.
Okay.
Into your, I guess, your brain area.
Right.
And the fluid is clear, looks like water. And so whenever that leaks, that causes the symptoms that I was having.
Okay.
You get a massive, massive headache. It really feels like your head is just going to explode.
Okay.
It literally does. And so once we got into the room, it was, okay, I think, well, he said, I suspect you have a CSF leak. He said, so you can either go to the ER and then, where I had the surgery in Baltimore, where we can run testing to be sure, and then we'll take it from there, or I can get you to, you can have a scan, an MRI scan. But we're going to have to get approval from your insurance, and that might take a couple days.
Excuse me?
Is what I said to the doctor. Excuse me? Like, I've already been said, no. So he said, well, what would you like to do?
Hold up. I need to dig into that.
Yeah.
Your doctor is looking at you in all this pain.
Mm-hmm.
This is the doc. How long had it been since your surgery?
Well, I had surgery on the 17th, and this was the 30th.
Okay, so he knows he just operated on you, and he told you need to go home until they approve something with your insurance.
Or he gave me a choice. Either go home and wait for the approval of the insurance company so I can take the MRI to see if it's a CSF leak, or go straight to the ER.
The ER that just sent you home?
No, the ER where I had the surgery in Baltimore.
Okay, do you think that would have been different results?
It was, because I chose to go to the ER.
Oh, now tell me about that.
So I chose to go to the ER, and I just requested, or had my daughter request, that they call ahead. Because you know how ERs are. You go, you got to wait here, wait there, wait there. Sometimes it's several hours before you're taken back to a room and actually see a doctor. And so I said, make sure they know that I'm coming, because I can't wait out in the lobby. I'm in too much pain. So his nurse did do that. So by the time my daughter got me from Columbia to the hospital in Baltimore, and I go in, through the door, they were waiting for me basically. So I signed in, I got right back to triage. Triage took me right to the back. I didn't have to wait, which is what I needed. I needed to be able to lay down.
Okay.
Now, before they can give you, usually before they give you pain medicine or take you out of pain or anything like that, they need to figure out what's going on. But I was in so much pain, they almost immediately started giving me an IV and giving this woman is in too much pain. We can't even do what we need to do. So they were trying to get me at least comfortable enough so they can run the test and figure out exactly, or actually say, yes, this is a CSF leak.
Okay.
And so they did that. I stayed in the emergency room for several hours and hours. But they did run the test, and it was determined that I do have a CSF leak.
Okay.
So from that point, I was admitted.
Okay. So they admit you to the hospital, finally.
Mm-hmm.
And what is fast forward, what was the process after they determined what the issue was?
Surgery again.
Okay, so when did you have the next surgery?
October 1st.
Surgery number 2.
Surgery number 2.
Okay, so October 1, we're going in for surgery again. September 17th, we just had surgery.
Yes.
October 1, we're going back into surgery.
Into the same area where they just operated on September 17th. So what they did was reopen the same incision. To go in and try to attempt to fix the leak. The process for that, for a CSF leak, once you come out, you're to lay completely flat. And you have to stay that way in the bed. And I had all these different kinds of drains and everything connected to me, and I literally had to lay flat.
Hold up. When you say lay flat, I'm trying to picture this because yeah. I don't do laying flat.
Yeah.
I need a pillow. As a matter of fact, I like to prop up in the bed. You couldn't have pillows.
I had maybe one.
Right.
But it couldn't be like, because right now, normally I have a bunch of pillows around me too. But I couldn't. So
did you have to lay on your stomach or did you have to lay on your back?
It was my choice, but I had to be flat. And so because I had all these tubes and stuff coming out of my back, it was uncomfortable to lay on my back. It's uncomfortable to lay on my stomach. So I chose my sides. And so what I did was I learned to master what's called the log roll, where you think of this as your body, and you're laying on the left side, and then when that gets numb, or tingly, or hurt, or sore because you've been on it for so long, you roll over to the other side. But I couldn't do that alone. So whenever I wanted to turn, I had to call for help.
Okay. Now, after you had your surgery on October the 1st, were they able to fix the situation?
They were not. So it was, okay, we need you to lay flat for about 3 or 4 days. Let's see if it's checks and see what kind of drainage we get with these drainage pumps that we're putting in you. And nothing was as it was expected. So I still had the bad headache. They weren't seeing the results they needed to see. And so it was determined that I had another leak.
No.
So surgery number 3 was October 11th.
Oh no. So this is when how are you feeling now? You going into surgery number 3.
Number 3.
The same problem.
Same problem, same area, same hospital. And it's at this time that the orthopedic surgeon decided to call on one of his counterparts, which was a neurosurgeon. So now I got orthopedics and I got neuro. So whenever they would come in or I would wake up, because in the hospital their doctors do their rounds like 6 a.m., at least that hospital they do. And you wake up, you will open your eyes and you got all these strangers. And it's also a teaching hospital too. So, yeah, I was exposed to a lot of things as far as the doctors and the people and this, that, and the other. But then we went into surgery number 3, which was the 11th of October.
Okay, so you go into surgery number 3, and what happens then?
It still didn't fix.
No.
It still did not fix. So because neuro took over and they were a portion of it, then I got transferred from the ortho floor to the neuro floor, still in the hospital, and it didn't fix. And so one of the residents came in and they couldn't figure. I was like, my head is still hurting. I'm still laying flat. And they just couldn't figure it out. And so I don't know. I was laying there and I knew I didn't get up. I didn't go to the restroom or anything like that. But all of a sudden, I felt wet in the back. And I was like, why do I feel wet back there? So I didn't have the ability to be able to reach. And when I reached, everything was wet. And so I immediately called and I was like, get the doctor. I'm wet back here and I shouldn't be. The fluid was leaking out.
Oh my goodness.
Onto the bed, onto my clothes, everywhere. And the one doctor, one of the neuro residents that came in and was taking a look at what was going on, like where it was coming from, because I still had stitches and stuff, so it was coming through the stitches, the fluid. When he took a video of how that was leaking, he pressed on a certain area that I told him bothered me most. When he did that, the fluid came out literally like it does out of a water fountain, with the curve and all.
Okay, so we are already 3 surgeries in.
Already 3 surgeries in.
So what was the result of this? Because now, after 3 surgeries, I'm thinking that it would have started getting better, but 3 surgeries in, it seems like it's getting worse.
Yes, it does. It does.
So what did the doctors do?
Surgery number 4.
So did they have to rush you into surgery?
No, the second surgery number 4 was the 18th of October. So you still have to wait your 3-4 days to see if it's going to check itself, if it's going to heal. When it does it, okay, let's give it another day to see what happens. And it doesn't. Meanwhile, I'm laying flat. I have no control. My independence is gone. And I'm trying to figure out what's happening. And at that point, God, I know you're here, but where are you? Because why is this happening? What's going on? I'm not understanding.
Yes, you try to have faith, but 4 surgeries.
This is surgery number 4 by this time.
I'm looking where are you, Lord?
What's happening?
What is happening? So are you starting to get scared?
Yeah.
Because it seems like you sound like you were handling things pretty well.
Well, yeah, on the inside, I was definitely frightened. Because I've never experienced anything like this before. I don't want to be anybody's guinea pig, but I knew that they had to fix it. I couldn't function in the pain that I was in. The magnitude was too large. I just couldn't. So it was like, what do you do? I'm not a medical doctor, so I got to depend on somebody. I need to be able to trust somebody to figure out what it is and fix it once and for all, so that we don't have to keep opening the same incision or the same wound back up over and over again. It's like having a scab and you just keep tearing the scab, it's never going to heal.
No. So you still riding with the same doctor?
Well, now it's switched over to neurosurgery.
Okay.
And that at that point, by surgery number 3, I told the ortho doctor, you can't do anything else to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
you
so
fed up.
I'm done with you. Let's let neuro come in and see, because while it wasn't getting fixed, some things were improving. And so that was the first time in this ordeal, up until this point, that I even saw, even a little bit of improvement. So my hope was in where I saw improvement, which was the neurosurgery team.
Okay, so how did things go after surgery 4?
So after surgery number 4, things were able to hold intact for a little while longer. I was finally able to be released from the hospital toward the end of October. I spent much of October in the hospital. At the very end of October, I was able to come home. Of course, there were strict instructions to take it easy, this, that, and the other. So I did all those things. And I thought that things were going fine. Went through the whole month of November. Didn't have to have surgery. Was sort of healing by then, because I had to basically figure out how to walk again and all of that. Because, laying down for so long, my legs felt like widows.
Question.
Yeah.
With the laying down for so long
Mm-hmm.
and having to have people help you, how did that make you feel? Because you strike me as a very independent person.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever gone through a situation where you needed help? What did you need help for? Why you had to lay flat all the time?
Everything. When I tell you everything, everything. And I had to go to the restroom.
Hello?
Somebody needed to come help me do that. When I needed to clean myself, somebody needed to come help me do that. When I wanted to get myself cleaned up, I had to depend on somebody else to come wash me up.
Question. I have a question about that.
Yeah.
When you go through something like that, is it up to you whether or not a man or a woman does that? Would they send a man to do that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. If that's the nurse on call that day, yeah.
That would make me feel so uncomfortable.
At one point, I did have a male nurse, and I requested the female nurse to come in at least. And she, while he was there, I wanted her to be the one to
do the touching of women. I just had to ask. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, it didn't.
So, but how did that make you feel though? I mean, did you feel disgusted?
I felt disgusted. In all honesty, for a period of time, I felt less than. Because again, like you said, I am a person who is very independent. I like to do things on my own for myself. And to have that independence stripped away, and I had no control also stripped away, it was like, I'm just here and I'm at the mercy of people that I don't even know. And so there were times where I needed something and I had to wait for them to bring it to me.
Was it ever times where you needed something and people couldn't get there when you wanted them to? And you just kind of had to?
I just had it plenty of times. Plenty of times.
Tell me about just one of them. Like when you were just frustrated.
Well, one time I had to go to the restroom. And I kept hitting the buzzer, saying, I gotta, somebody come. I need to go to the restroom. And again, I couldn't get up. So laying in the bed, I did everything in the bed, in the same spot. I ate, I washed up, I did number 1, number 2, restroom, and I rested all in the same bed. I never got out the bed. Even when they changed the bed, I was in the bed while they changed it. They just rolled me over, changed one side, rolled me over, and changed the other side. I never got out of that bed.
That's rough. I mean,
yeah.
Just thinking about the number 2.
Even the number 2. And
I don't even want anybody in the bathroom when I can handle myself. I mean,
yeah.
Just, that's rough.
It's rough. And to have to wait till somebody bring you a pan. And then one time, I'll admit, I went and, I had a mess. I had to lay in that.
Oh, no.
Until somebody came and cleaned me up. Because I couldn't get up and do it That night I cried because I'm laying here and I'm at these other people's mercy, and it's like, why don't nobody care? Why don't you care that I'm calling you, telling you that I got a mess going on? Can you come clean me up? Why don't you care? So I lay in it until they came. There wasn't anything I could do.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So we 4 surgeries in.
Yeah.
So did you get released?
I did. The 25th of October, I finally got released home.
Okay, so this is a good thing.
I was hoping that. That it was a good thing. So like I said, for the entire month of November, it was all about healing. Now I still have what's called a PICC line. So I came home with an IV still in my arm, and I was still giving myself IV medication. Because in the midst of all these CSF leaks, in the midst of all these surgeries, I also caught an infection in my back, in the surgical area. So it was treating the CSF leak and trying to treat the infection at the same time. And so that's what the IV medication was for. So I did that. The PICC line finally came out somewhere around November 20th. I remember it was just before Thanksgiving. The PICC line finally came out. And then I had already planned and paid for to take daughter on a trip for her birthday in November. I was able to do that, but I did it in a wheelchair. But I was able to go, but I did it in a wheelchair.
Okay, so things are looking up.
So I'm thinking things are looking a little better.
You go on the trip.
Go on the
Y'all had a
trip.
good time. You were in a wheelchair.
In a wheelchair, but you know,
that probably made you feel a little better.
made me feel a little better because I was still able to go. Still not feeling the greatest, but I'm here. But then when I came back, right after Thanksgiving, I was going, something's not right. And I remember something feeling funny in my back. And when I reached back there, I had a bulge in my back that was right next to the incision area. And I said, uh-oh, this not right. This not supposed to be here. This wasn't always here. And so I went back to my doctor, the neurosurgeon. Well, we need to run a scan to figure out what's going on. Okay. So he sends me out to the ER, and they run another scan. You have an infection, and we need to operate right away.
No.
So here comes surgery number 5.
Surgery number 5.
Surgery number 5.
Okay, we go into surgery number 5. What's happening now? I mean, you got to be...
So we go into surgery number 5. I was just so done with, like, I cannot believe this is happening. You know, I've had 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks roughly of not having to, you know, deal with this, and here we are again. So I go in on December the 5th and do the next surgery. Surgery number 5. Thankfully, that was the last one.
Okay, so surgery number 5, they were able to rectify the situation.
They cleared out the infection, so the CSF leak is holding in place. That's a good thing. And they were able to clear out the infection, still going in the same incision area. But, you know, they were able to wash it out, clear it out, what have you. And I was on IV meds from December to February.
Okay. So, after you've gone through all of this, what do you feel like it did to you as a person? Because I do believe in process, and you know, while God, He allows some things, and He allowed this to happen to you. Looking back on it now, that your 5 surgeries over, you're healed now. What do you think about that process now that you got to the other side of it?
Well, I do believe that I had to, well, not I do believe, it showed me that all this time I thought I was in control, that I was in control of things. I wasn't. God is in control. And while I lost control, He never left me. That's something I never lost. And what brought me to that realization is the enemy, you know, my mind started playing tricks on me, just laying there with no nobody was around, when nothing was moving, I didn't have any visitors or anything like that. All I had was time. And that's where it came to the point where I realized I had to change how I was thinking, because my mind started to tell me that I wasn't never going to get up. My mind started to tell me that I wasn't going to make it, and this, that, and that. And I'm going, wait a minute, I still got work to do. This can't be life. This is not how I'm going to go out. This ain't it.
So you actually were having those, like, you starting to have those thoughts. You're
Yes.
alone. You just starting to think that I might not get out of here.
That this is it. This is how my story is going to end, basically.
Right. And question, did you feel like once you started changing the way you thinking, the way you were thinking, that it changed your circumstances?
It changed how I dealt with my circumstances, right? So once I changed, so I realized in talking to one of my people that I had to create my own atmosphere for healing. Even though I'm in the hospital, the doctors are doing whatever they need to do, I needed to create my own atmosphere for healing. And when I say healing, I don't mean necessarily for the physical, while that's involved. I needed to start healing my mind and my way of thinking first. I had to change that in order for the rest to be effective and work.
So what exactly did you do?
So what I did was I started, there's certain favorite songs that I have. So I started playing that in the hospital room and just letting the words take over the area and where I was. I prayed more. I talked out more. And I even asked God, instead of saying, so up at that point, I was going, why me? And then it changed to, well, why not help me through this? Because then I started to realize the more and more I talked to God, the more and more I prayed, the more and more I created a positive atmosphere for myself, was that what I was going through was not going to be for me. In the end, my testimony or my story or whatever it is that I'm going through is going to be to help somebody else. And so I need you to get what I need you to get while you're here, so that you'll be able to do that once you get through this. And then I started to believe that I was going to get better.
Do you think that process changed the way you deal in life, period? Now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because in coming through that process, I realized because I used to be a little short-tempered, certain things would really get under my skin. And then what occurred to me is that it really ain't that deep. It ain't that deep. What you mad for? You're not going to change anything. It's not that deep. Don't give that your energy. Give your energy to something else. Something that's more positive. Something that's going to, take you to the next level. Something that is more pleasing to God, because that giving my energy to that is not pleasing to God, because that's not what He wants me to do.
And this is interesting because sometimes I hear people talk about the mental when it comes, I know EMT workers and people that deal with the accidents and things like that. And I'll notice that when people are not aware of what's going on, they are sometimes more likely to live because they don't go into shock.
Right.
So I think about that when I think about you being able to handle the mental when you're going through things and how important it is. You get a lot of drunk drivers that get in horrific accidents.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be drinking and driving. But they talk about how those people weren't aware of what was going on, and sometimes they'll tell me that that's how they think they might have pulled through, because they weren't freaking out, they weren't worried.
Right.
And what you said, I'm sure that speaks to a lot of us, because a lot of times we lose our cool over things and it's really not that deep.
Not that deep.
Like you said. And I guess when you go through things like that, you start to realize it's bigger fish to fry.
There you go.
So that's something that I definitely consider. We catch ourselves tripping off some of the smaller things in life. And I mean throwing a fit because our chicken was burnt from hip hop.
Hello. It's not that serious.
I'm talking about an attitude.
Right.
And it's not that deep.
Right.
But so what would you say to people that may be looking or listening to this right now that may be in a situation like that with their health, or maybe something else where their mind is not focused on the positive, or they feel like they're on sinking sand,
right?
Or the enemy is in their ear saying, "This is it." You know, what would be your guidance to them, especially those the ones that are that are in the hospital beds?
Yeah.
Or it might be some people watching that are facing surgery, or it might be some people watching that are unhappy with their life and just feel like all the bills are zoning them in, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Like, what would you say to them to encourage them or to launch them into doing what you did? Like, what made you make the decision to do that?
Once I realized that it was my decision to make.
Oh.
I realized I can make the decision. It is up to me to set my own tone, to set my own atmosphere. It's up to me to do that. And once I realized that I was able to do that, and the benefits that I get from doing that, I did it more and more and more. And next thing, and whenever, nurses or whomever would come in, I kept playing music. Sorry if this offends you, but I need to do this.
Right, this is for me.
This is for me. And I had nurses and stuff come around and say, I don't know how you do it. You keep such a positive attitude, and yet you're laying up here in this hospital bed. And I said, well, what else I got? If I don't create my own atmosphere for my own healing, starting with my mental, starting with how I think, then I'll never get out of this bed. And my goal is to get out of this bed. So how do I get there? Because I'm not the doctors, and I can't, work on myself medically, physically. I can work on my spirit. I can work on my mindset and how I think. I can do that. And I can work on, what I allow to infiltrate and what I block. And that's what I allow to infiltrate is all God and all that is of God. What I block is all that's not.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that, Cece. And as our show is coming to a close for the evening, I commend you, and I really do salute you, because people go through storms and you don't look like what you've been through. And you hear people say that all the time.
Yeah.
But when you hear people's stories, it will amaze you. I know people that haven't had 5 surgeries in their life. So for you to have gone through 5 surgeries in such a small amount of time, and still just kept a positive attitude, and still serving God and having faith in Him that He will bring you to the other side, it's just wonderful. And I know that your story is going to touch many. I'm sure we touch people tonight, but I'm sure this is the beginning for that story. And I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Let's Talk with Ro. Be sure to tune in next Thursday at 7 p.m. See you soon.